On Sunday, August 13, 2023, a Russian warship fired warning shots at a cargo ship in the southwestern Black Sea. Sukru Okan, a general cargo ship, was heading northwards when the ship's captain failed to respond to a request to halt for an inspection. But the entire incident was recorded on body cam footage. Video released that Tuesday showed Russian naval officers using a helicopter to board the Palau-flagged Sukru Okan vessel during an armed naval inspection in the southwestern Black Sea. This marks the first time Russia has fired on merchant shipping beyond Ukraine since exiting a landmark UN-brokered grain deal last month, after which the military stated any ship leaving or nearing a Ukrainian port would be treated like an enemy. Whether done intentionally to show the public just what the Russians are willing to do, or just a misunderstanding to a spokesperson for Ukraine's Southern Military Command, this statement could be a signal to all other civilian vessels in the Black Sea from now on. Amidst a complex web of negotiations and geopolitical tensions, a pivotal deal was struck. In July 2022, to ensure that Ukraine, one of the world's biggest sources of grain, could safely export during an ongoing invasion, the Black Sea Grain Initiative was established between Turkey, the UN, and Russia. This was an outstanding diplomatic achievement, considering the war started only a couple of months before. The initiative allowed commercial food and fertilizer exports from 3 important Ukrainian ports in the Black Sea. Under this deal, Ukrainian vessels guided cargo ships into international waters of the Black Sea, avoiding mined areas. These ships heading to and from the Ukrainian ports are inspected by Russian, Turkish, Ukrainian, and UN inspectors. Turkey was involved due to the close relationship between its president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and Vladimir Putin, and because, under the Montreux Convention signed in 1936, the nation oversees maritime traffic in the straits these export ships travel through. A separate deal was signed alongside this memorandum, minimizing the impact of sanctions on the export of Russian food and fertilizer. As accorded, both deals would be subject to reviews every 4 and then 2 months. But as the war unfurled, this accord's stability began to waver. On July 17, 2023, however, after months of speculation because of fewer and fewer joint inspections on their part, Russia halted participation in the Black Sea grain deal that allowed Ukraine to export agricultural produce via the Black Sea. As Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters that day, quote, "Unfortunately, the part of these Black Sea agreements concerning Russia has not been implemented so far, so its effect is terminated." As uncertainties grew, a decision rocked the region, raising concerns about food security and international relations. As expected, the announcement has brought controversy. Ukraine and the West say these steps amount to a de facto blockade of Ukrainian ports, worsening food security for millions. Initially, some suspected this had been in response to an incident that happened only a few hours before, where a strike by Ukrainian sea drones knocked out Russia's bridge to Crimea. But this has been vehemently denied. Russia says the West failed to implement a parallel agreement easing rules for its own food and fertilizer exports. Following pulling back from the deal, both nations have implemented additional restrictions in the cancellation's wake. Moscow has said it will treat any ships approaching Ukrainian ports as potential military vessels and their flag countries as combatants on the Ukrainian side. Ukraine responded with a similar threat to ships approaching Russian or Russian-held Ukrainian ports. On one occasion, Ukraine attacked a Russian oil tanker and a warship at its Novorossiysk naval base near a major grain and oil port. The Russian threat against the main route both countries use to get their agricultural produce to market would materialize not long after, and even be documented. Almost exactly a month after Russia threatened to intercept ships in their way, the Russians fulfilled their promise in mid-August when the military boarded a commercial vessel in the Black Sea. The news first came as a press release by the Russian Ministry of Defense retelling the events. On the earliest moments of August 13, 2023, the Russian Navy's Black Sea Fleet's patrol ship, Vasily Bykov, detected a foreign ship while on a mission to patrol shipping lanes. Flying under the flag of Palau, an island country in the Western Pacific, this ship was later identified as a cargo ship named Sukru Okan and managed by a Turkish company. As the two ships inched closer and closer, according to Russian accounts, the dry cargo ship's captain did not respond to an initial demand to stop to inspect the potential carriage of prohibited goods. In turn, the Russian combat ship fired warning shots from automatic small arms to forcibly stop the vessel, apparently making its way toward the Ukrainian port of Izmail. To investigate, The combat ship's commander sent a Ka-29 helicopter with a group of servicemen to take off from the patrol ship Vasily Bykov. The clash between the two vessels brought an intense moment of confrontation. The second part of this story was confirmed a little over a day after the incident, when military bloggers in Russia and news organizations posted a video that showed a military helicopter hovering at deck level near the starboard side of Sukru Okan. The footage has been verified by the New York Times. 8 men in civilian clothes, who appear to be the ship's crew, sit cross-legged on the deck with their hands on their heads as a Russian Ka-29 helicopter approaches. In that same release from August 15th, the naval invasion continued with body cam footage from the unit that performed the operation. As the Russian servicemen with weapons in their hands enter the ship's bridge, they tell the nervous crew members to stay still, keep calm, and listen, telling them they are being recorded. All this is done in English, the official naval language used all across the seas for international encounters like these. The Russian officer then questions the captain through a crew translator about why the ship did not stop when asked to. Soon it becomes clear that a big contributor to the misunderstanding was a language barrier impediment, as the crew member translating for the captain indicated that he failed to stop because he did not initially understand the Russian demand. In a thick accent, the crew member says in English, quote, "You, bad understand." According to Russia, after the inspection group completed their work aboard Sukru Okan, the vessel continued sailing. The Russian Defense Ministry later stated, quote, "During the inspection activities, the work of the inspection team was carried out professionally in accordance with the requirements of international documents." Additionally, Sukru Okan's captain signed a paper stating that no harm or damage was caused to the vessel and that no cargo was seized. Tensions have escalated steadily since Moscow terminated the deal, but the incident appeared to be the first time the Russian Navy had boarded a ship since the grain deal ended. The day after the incident, Ukraine condemned Russia on Monday for the decision to stop and search the vessel bound for Ukraine, saying this endangered freedom of navigation on the Black Sea. According to Ukraine's foreign ministry, which added that it was a blatant violation of international law, Russia should not be able to block international routes in the Black Sea. The August 2023 video will likely exacerbate already acute concerns among ship owners, insurers, and commodity traders about the potential dangers of the Black Sea and the viability of shipping grain through Ukraine's Danube ports. However, according to Andrei Sizov, the head of Sovicon, Black Sea Grain Markets Consultancy probably won't change the Russian shippers' behavior. Since then, Russia has only increased attacks on port cities, especially infrastructure, hitting sites close to the border of Romania, a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The Black Sea Fleet ships continue patrols in the designated areas, and according to the Russian Defense Ministry, the fierce statement persists, quote, "All vessels operating in the Black Sea will be viewed as legitimate targets by Russia." As for Sukru Okan, the general cargo ship inspected by the Russian military on August 24, 2023, it was reported she left the Ukrainian port of Izmail and entered the Black Sea, safely returning for her next, and hopefully less scary mission. Hawaii's Pacific Missile Range facility, Barking Sands, is the largest instrumented multi-environmental range in the world, capable of supporting surface, subsurface, air, and space operations simultaneously. PMRF is the only facility in the world where submarines, surface ships, aircraft, and space vehicles can operate and be tracked simultaneously. As a state-of-the-art compound that can support operations ranging from small, single-unit exercises up to large-scale, multiple-unit battle group scenarios, it's no surprise Barking Sands is one of the most top-secret facilities the United States has. In January of 2023, as tensions between Washington and Moscow increased over the Ukrainian conflict, a Russian vessel was spotted operating near the facilities, and the Coast Guard was put on high alert. In video and satellite photos released by the service, the Russian vessel can be seen coming as close as 25 miles to the Hawaiian shore, displaying her guns and what appears to be cutting-edge spyware equipment, showing that the facility's strategic importance and capabilities make it a potential target for dangerous adversaries. In mid-January 2023, a Russian Navy ship appeared on America's backyard after sailing thousands of miles from the icy coasts in the Far East to the warm sunshine. Open-source intelligence analysts were the first to report the incident, tracking a mysterious Russian spy vessel operating just miles to the west of the Hawaiian island of Kauai. This was no coincidence, as the island is home to the United States Navy's Pacific Missile Range facility, Barking Sands, the world's largest instrumented multi-environmental range, capable of handling exercises from single-unit operations to large-scale, multiple-unit battlegroup scenarios. For days, the Russian ship lingered off the western coast of Hawaii, where the U.S. Navy and the Missile Defense Agency test-fire a wide variety of missiles, including ballistic missile interceptors like the Navy's SM-3 and SM-6 weapons. In the last few years, Russia repeatedly warned that it considers American missile defense efforts to be a danger to Russian security. After tracking the ship, the United States Coast Guard reported that they were already aware of her movements. According to Commander David Milne, chief of the Coast Guard's external affairs, quote, "The U.S. Coast Guard is currently monitoring the Russian vessel operating in the vicinity of Hawaii. As part of our daily operations, we track all vessels in the Pacific area through surface and air assets and joint agency capabilities." The Coast Guard also released a video recording of the ship, which showed a Russian tanker supplying the alleged spy ship, and then cut to the large spy vessel, with her bow and AK-630 Gatling guns visible. The latter half of the video focused on the rear of the Russian vessel, with a particular focus on her antennas. Although neither the Coast Guard nor the United States Pacific Fleet provided additional details about the Russian spy ship, online commenters quickly identified the vessel as the Russian Navy's Vishnya-class auxiliary general intelligence ship, Karelia. Also known as the Meridian, Vishnya-class, or Soviet designation Project 864, the Karelia is an intelligence collection ship originally built in the 1980s. The ship is approximately 490 feet long and is powered by a diesel and gas mixed turbine propulsion system, allowing for a maximum speed of 30 knots. Typically, the Vishnya class is crewed by 150 sailors and officers, and when used for reconnaissance missions, it includes a helicopter landing deck and hangar. The Vishnya class is designed for signals intelligence gathering through an extensive array of state-of-the-art sensors. These spy ships collect intelligence about an adversary's potential radio and radar signals, as well as sea and air traffic near a port. The gathered data is then transmitted to shore via satellite link antennas housed in 2 large radomes. After being in conservation status for over a decade, the Russian Navy decided to take 7 of these ships out of mothballs in 2014 for a repair and upgrade period, returning them to the fleet in 2017. Today, 7 such ships specialize in signals intelligence, intercepting and deciphering an adversary's transmissions. As with all Navy ships, the ship seen snooping around in Hawaii is not to be taken lightly. In addition to 2 AK-630 close-in weapon systems, the vessel also has a powerful SA-8 Gecko air-to-missile system for last resort self-defense. According to the Coast Guard, the presence of foreign military ships near the United States' exclusive economic zone is neither illegal nor unusual. Nevertheless, the presence of a suspected intelligence-gathering ship attracted the attention of American defense officials due to the current precarious timing of the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine and Russia's previous naval appearances near United States coastlines. Signal intelligence operations are common practice with both rival and allied navies, as Chinese and Russian vessels routinely monitor United States exercises and vice versa. Throughout the Cold War, Soviet surveillance ships often operated off the East Coast near naval stations in Virginia, Florida, and a nuclear submarine in Georgia. Even in recent years, similar incidents have continued to occur along American coasts. In 2016, Navy intelligence spotted a Russian spy ship near Hawaii, while the United States and other allied countries conducted large-scale naval exercises. 3 years later, in December of 2019, American officials stated that a Russian spy ship, the Viktor Leonov, was sailing off the coast of Florida and South Carolina in an unsafe manner. The actions of the surveillance ship were deemed as such because the ship was not using running lights in low-visibility weather and was not responding to communication attempts by commercial vessels to avoid potential accidents. Satellite photos from January 10th show the Russian vessel coming as close as 25 miles to the Hawaiian shore. Since the beginning, the Navy and Coast Guard have remained aware of every movement of the Russian ship, with spokesman Captain John Gay confirming that the Pacific Fleet continued to track the vessel throughout her time around the coast. Only a few days after the initial announcement of the spotting of the Russian spy ship, an update by a defense official informed the press that the ship had been operating just within the bounds of international law. As such, while the incident was suspicious, particularly due to the timing, there was no rule-breaking within the accident, and it was not a hazard to navigation. As the Coast Guard continued to monitor the ship, Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh stated that the Pentagon did not know why the Russian spy ship sailed near Hawaii, but also noted what she called the operation's precarious timing. According to the spokeswoman, quote, "We haven't seen any unsafe or unprofessional behavior, and we expect that the Russians will operate within the region in accordance with international law." The Coast Guard stated in its news release that ships belonging to foreign militaries can sail through the United States Economic Exclusive Zone. As part of the Department of Homeland Security, the service works with the Department of Defense to track vessel movement and provide additional United States presence in areas where foreign military ships may be sailing. According to the report, the activities of this particular Russian ship were more a matter of routine than unusual interest. Washington stated that the ship did not pose any immediate threats to United States military and civilian relationships, as it did not engage in any unsafe or unprofessional behavior. However, online critics and commentators have speculated that the Karelia vessel was parked off the Hawaiian coast in anticipation of a new American missile test or related exercise. While such tests are not typically announced in advance, the Russians have a history of having a vessel in place to collect data ahead of time. Exactly how Moscow knows this is just one of the many mysteries of the ever-evolving Russian-American relationship. Emerging from the unyielding cold Arctic, a new Russian weapon is revealed. The Burevestnik, a global-range nuclear-powered cruise missile with a theoretical range of up to 14,000 miles. As the missile soars into the icy sky, its engines roaring against the backdrop of endless snow, it's clear this is no ordinary weapon. Equipped with a compact nuclear reactor and designed to fly at low altitudes to evade radar, the Burevestnik is Russia's audacious answer to modern missile defense systems. President Vladimir Putin has confirmed its successful testing, but the missile's full capabilities, like its ability to carry both conventional and nuclear warheads, remain a closely guarded secret. Satellite images have managed to capture only fleeting glimpses of its test flights, fueling speculation and concern across the globe. Deep within Russia's vast Arctic expanse, satellite images and aviation data unveil a disconcerting narrative. Emerging from the aftermath of the 1980s, when the Cold War specter loomed large, the Burevestnik, often referred to as the SSC-X-9 Skyfall, has become an epicenter of global intrigue and apprehension. This isn't merely a missile. It's an avant-garde nuclear-powered cruise missile with a theoretical range vast enough to traverse continents. Historically, the Soviet Union and subsequently Russia faced a dilemma. The United States Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, popularly dubbed the Star Wars program during Reagan's leadership, aimed to neutralize the looming nuclear threat of intercontinental ballistic missiles. For the Soviets, the pressing concern wasn't just the SDI's existence, but the mysteries of its full capabilities. If the program proved effective, it had the potential to upset the intricate equilibrium of nuclear deterrence. In a bold bid to preserve this nuclear balance, Russia's defense machinery conceived a groundbreaking idea: a cruise missile with the stamina to fly ceaselessly, bypass missile defenses, and deliver strikes with unerring accuracy from any angle. Thus, the Burevestnik was born. A meticulous review by the New York Times indicates that activities around a hidden Russian facility mirror test preparations observed in 2017 and 2018. By 2019, tests on its innovative nuclear power unit had made remarkable progress. Bearing the name of the Storm Petrel, a maritime bird heralding bad weather, the missile's moniker underscores its profound national resonance. In the early 2010s, the story of the Burevestnik began to unfold. This missile, reminiscent of designs from the zenith of the Cold War, stands out from conventional projectiles. Its range is almost legendary, and its unique dimensions and blueprint hint at its potential to bypass contemporary air defense mechanisms. The driving force behind this missile has sparked numerous discussions and theories. Speculation around its thrust mechanism spans a broad spectrum, from nuclear thermal propulsion to ramjets emitting radioactive trails. Western intelligence even entertains the potential of turbojet mechanisms and liquid-propelled boosters. The latter would allow it to cover expansive terrains. Putin's regime likens it to the Kh-101 cruise missile, emphasizing the Burevestnik's superior range, attributable to its nuclear power source. Yet, industry experts offer a different perspective. Some visualize the Burevestnik as a titan, weighing considerably more than the Kh-101. They point to distinctive design elements like wing configurations and air intake structures, potentially tied to its nuclear core. Either way, the Burevestnik is thought to pose a significant challenge to current missile defense systems. Satellite imagery tells its own tale, with snapshots revealing increased activity at launch sites. The designation of a temporary danger area near the Barents Sea and the sighting of specific aircraft lends credence to suspicions of a potential test. The U.S., far from being a mere observer, has ramped up its reconnaissance, underscored by the RC-135W rivet joint aircraft hovering near potential launch points. Overhead, the skies are becoming busier. U.S. surveillance planes, having been tracked in the vicinity, signal a growing international interest and perhaps alarm. And it's no wonder. Aviation alerts have been issued, warning pilots to steer clear of this contentious airspace. Between 2017 and 2019, Russia conducted 13 known tests of the Burevestnik. Yet each endeavor met with failure. One misadventure in 2019 was particularly harrowing. A missile crashed, and in the ensuing recovery attempt, a tragic explosion took the lives of 7 individuals. That year, the ominous event cast a pall over the Burevestnik's development. The Neonoxa radiation accident, confirmed by the Russian nuclear agency Rosatom, was linked to the testing of an isotope power source for a rocket engine. Speculation was rife. Some analysts connected the accident directly to the Burevestnik. Others cast doubts, considering the complexity and financial constraints of such an ambitious project. Further investigation suggested that the explosion might have occurred during the recovery of a previously lost missile. The Russian perspective on the event tied back to the broader geopolitical picture. Officials linked the drive for such weapons to the U.S. withdrawal from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. Putin, emphasizing the groundbreaking nature of the weapon, affirmed Russia's commitment to its completion, regardless of setbacks. While the Burevestnik now captures international attention, its inception had long been signaled. Satellite imagery, combined with aviation data, hinted at Russia's preparations in the Arctic, evoking memories of prior test attempts. Darrell G. Kimball of the Arms Control Association described the Burevestnik's development phase as both exotic and dangerous. While there's ambiguity about any recent tests since 2019, even a triumphant launch doesn't promise imminent deployment. Despite its potential range of 14,000 miles, its best test saw it travel only 22 miles before an untimely plunge into the ocean depths. Yet the purpose of the Burevestnik is clear. The Nuclear Threat Initiative report categorizes it as a second-strike strategic range weapon. In layman's terms, this missile would be Russia's response after a wave of nuclear strikes on its territory. While capable of carrying a conventional warhead, its more likely payload would be nuclear. Experts surmise that its wartime employment could obliterate vast urban expanses and significant military objectives. For all the speculation, one voice, Fabian Hoffman from the University of Oslo, suggests that this technological marvel, despite its purported capabilities, may not shift the nuclear balance in Russia's favor. Hoffman presents an intriguing perspective. The Burevestnik, rather than being an aggressive first-strike weapon, is a symbol of deterrence. Its design purpose is to discourage worthy adversaries, primarily the United States, from launching a preemptive strike against Russia. However, every silver lining has a cloud. The Burevestnik's development, while showcasing Russia's technological prowess, also underscores its resource commitment. To the west and Ukraine, this could present a tactical edge. As Russia intensifies its investment in this endeavor, it might inadvertently sap resources from other sectors, potentially diluting its overarching strategic stature. As tensions soar amidst the Ukraine crisis, nuclear conversations within Russia intensify. Discussions, even among top echelons, have started to delve into nuclear possibilities, straining the fabric of global diplomacy. While much of the Burevestnik remains shrouded in mystery, Putin has been transparent about its nuclear thrust. The notion that a compact nuclear reactor could perpetually sustain this missile once airborne stands out. And this innovation isn't isolated. It's one of several strategic tools unveiled by Putin in 2018, touted as game changers against U.S. defenses. Yet, the Burevestnik's essence remains elusive. The unequivocal truth is that it comes with inherent risks, not just as a destructive force, but also its potential for radioactive mishaps. And while the new START Treaty governs it, that treaty's looming expiration in 2026 might herald an unfettered arms race. Kimball indeed captured the essence, suggesting a test might indicate Russia's troubling trajectory. The Burevestnik symbolizes more than technological might. It embodies a nation's resolve to uphold its geopolitical standing. From ideation to evolution, it mirrors the intricate nexus of geopolitics, technological prowess, and the unyielding quest for security. Its ultimate impact on warfare's future is undetermined, but the nuclear supremacy race is still far from the finish line. For decades, the world's superpowers have stood against each other in a perilous gridlock that unceasingly threatens the planet with the possibility of a nuclear war. Even so, brief but potentially cataclysmic lapses of reason have emboldened military units to occasionally clash against each other in aggressive maneuvers that could dangerously escalate if the situations are not immediately diffused. On Thursday, January 9, 2020, the American destroyer USS Farragut was aggressively confronted by an initially unidentified Russian vessel while conducting routine operations in the North Arabian Sea. The approach, which was caught on camera, was deliberate and reckless, and the crew on board the American ship felt immediately threatened by the Russian maneuver. As Navy officials assessed the situation, the hostile Russian ship continued to draw ever closer with increasing speed, putting both vessels at risk of collision. The U.S. destroyer continually signaled the aggressive vessel to change course, but the Russians did not seem to comply. The American seamen prepared for the worst as they kept on sending signals. If all efforts failed, they would have to fire upon the Russian vessel, even if it meant risking a global conflict of unparalleled reach and scale. Incidents in which Russian ships have suddenly approached U.S. vessels aggressively have drastically grown over the past years. In mid-2019, a Russian ship recklessly charged at USS Chancellorsville while she operated in the Philippine Sea. The aggressive ship dashed full speed ahead in what seemed like a collision trajectory, only stopping when she was just 50 feet away from the American vessel and her crew. Navy servicemen are trained to remain calm and with their heads cold, even in the direst circumstances. But according to a U.S. 7th Fleet spokesman, Chancellorsville was forced to, quote, execute all engines back full and to maneuver to avoid collision. The Russian crew had just risked an armed encounter of global proportions. After the tense occurrence, Russian media declared that the American ship had crossed the path of the Russian vessel, and that her crew had no intention of provoking or participating in a conflict. But as increasingly more events with similar characteristics seem to take place around the globe, the U.S. military is confident that the aggressive behavior is part of a Russian strategy to test the response capabilities of the American forces operating in international territory. 7 months after the Chancellorsville closely avoided the collision, another Russian vessel showed the same aggressive and erratic behavior when she violently dashed against USS Farragut as she conducted routine operations in the North Arabian Sea. Military warships are massive and voluminous metal superstructures that require strict and methodical procedures to move according to plan. The crew of such ships must always be aware of their surroundings and any nearby boat, as even the slimmest miscalculation could lead to catastrophe. Furthermore, once a large warship is already cruising at high speed, stopping or diverting her course can be a complex and demanding task that cannot be accomplished immediately. As such, having a sizable unidentified vessel approaching aggressively is a dangerous and potentially calamitous provocation. The U.S. Navy takes such occurrences very seriously. Even in the best of cases, they can risk the sailors' integrity, and in the worst of circumstances, they can lead to a devastating fire exchange against foreign forces or lethal collisions. Even when crashes occur at slower speeds, the consequences can be lethal for those involved, as a recent incident in Singapore clearly showed. In 2017, as two U.S. vessels were passing through the Singapore Strait, U.S. guided missile destroyer USS John S. McCain suddenly made a sharp, unexpected turn. The warship abruptly came into the path of a large American tanker, leading to a devastating collision that could not be prevented even when the tanker attempted to halt her advance. The unfortunate incident cost the lives of 10 U.S. sailors and considerable damage to both vessels. No ill intent was found after an investigation, but the perilous affair showcased how dangerous ship collisions can be and why U.S. Navy crew members must always be on high alert to prevent such disasters. However, when a foreign force intentionally drives a massive ship into a U.S. vessel with the intention to intimidate, the stakes grow exponentially, and the possibility of the incident devolving into an all-out battle becomes much more immediate. USS Farragut is an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer that has served in the waters surrounding the Middle East for almost a decade, mainly operating in the Gulf of Oman, the Gulf of Aden and Somali Basin, and the Arabian Sea. For years, Farragut served as the flagship of CTF-151. She was responsible for providing maritime security for friendly vessels against piracy and securing freedom of navigation in the region. As such, the destroyer and her crew had plenty of experience navigating the waters of the Arabian Sea. With such experience under their belt, it immediately became clear to the Farragut's crew that something was wrong when a Russian spy ship began approaching their position aggressively and without attempting to communicate their intentions. The event was so peculiar to some American sailors that they decided to record it, offering the world a rare glimpse of the dramatic and tense situation about to unfold. In the footage, the Russian ship can be seen approaching rapidly at Farragut from behind. The aggressive move was surprising for the U.S. sailors, but they expected the foreign vessel to change course at any moment. Still defying all accords, the aggressive ship continued to dash toward the American destroyer in an apparent collision course. The commander in charge of the U.S. vessel then ordered the crew to sound 5 short blasts, the international maritime signal for the danger of collision. However, the Russian ship ignored the signals and rushed directly toward the U.S. destroyer. Farragut then communicated with the Russian vessel and demanded they alter their course under the international rules of the road. Even so, the spy ship continued with her aggressive approach, disregarding the requests for a course change. The tension was unbearable, and some American crew members feared the worst as the opposing ship refused to comply with international law. The hostile vessel was now only 60 yards from USS Farragut, a hazardous distance for warships moving at high speed. The following few seconds would be crucial. A devastating crash would likely happen if the Russian ship continued her trajectory. The U.S. destroyer's commander had to consider every possible action to avoid that, including engaging the spy ship to force her to stop. Fortunately for everyone involved, the Russian ship finally complied and moved away from the U.S. destroyer at the last second, after which she went in a different direction. The affair was highly stressful and risky, and it could have devolved into an international confrontation between the two superpowers. At the end of the day, a catastrophe was averted. Even so, U.S. Navy officials described the Russian actions as irresponsible and unprofessional, stating, quote, "The initial delay in complying with international rules while it was making an aggressive approach increased the risk of collision. The U.S. Navy continues to remain vigilant and is trained to act in a professional manner."